most important thing that we get wrong in the reading of the Stoics is not actually being alive in our own feelings and understanding ourselves, but trying to block out the things that we consider to be weak.
What are some happiness strategies from the ancients?
There are lots. I mean, obviously, there's so much to choose from, but let me think of three really contrasting ones. And we'll start with the guy who is the anti-Stoic, Epicurus. His big idea about happiness is it comes from peace. It comes from tranquility. It comes from good feelings. So get all the bad feelings out of your life. Get all the hassles and problems out of your life. Live well, live with peace, and happiness will follow.
We think of Epicurus saying that pleasure is happiness, but really he's saying about removing sort of unpleasantness first.
No. People think of him as some sort of unbridled, immoral hedonist. That's completely wrong. Epicurus, I mean, he had a cult and a compound and a commune or something where people were like, yeah, the Epicurean way was a big deal, but he was really all about peace, all about being able to live well without the problems of life impinging upon you. If you take away all those problems, then that's when you find your happiness.
All right, so what are the other two?
Second one is, let's take this one. This is a classic. This is from Jesus Christ. Radical love. That's the secret of happiness, because happiness is love. Love is God. God is love, and happiness is the ultimate thing that you can acquire in life and acquire in the life hereafter as well.
In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius, I think it's from one of his philosophical mentors, he says, I'd be curious what you think of this paradox. He says, the key is to be free of passion but full of love.
Yeah. No, that's actually, there's something to that, although the Christian worldview would say that to be free of passion is a problem too, because what you need is passion. Well, it's a different sense than what Epicurus would have said and what the Stoics would have said too. The excess emotionality that we would associate with that is certainly, I can actually find the consistency between those two.
Yeah, I'm thinking, anger, lust, greed, desire, etc.,
exactly.
compared to
the basic
empathy,
positive and negative emotions.
Yes.
Yeah, and the complex emotions that actually come from being a person fully alive, that's quite different. I agree.
Okay, third one.
Third one is, let's go to the Lord Buddha, 500 years before Christ, who would say that the secret of happiness is want less. This is really important, and this gets actually to the concept of passions, as we were talking, as Epicurus, or Epictetus for that matter, would have understood passions. Want less, because that's the basis of attachment. And the first noble law of Buddhism is that life is suffering, where the word in Sanskrit is dukkha, which is really dissatisfaction. When you want more, all you do is you blow up your dissatisfaction. And the secret to defeating that in the eightfold path of the noble path of Buddhism is really, it comes down to wanting less.
I love it. What are some things you think the Stoics got wrong?
So probably the Stoics didn't actually get anything wrong, but there's a lot of the ways that we interpret the Stoics that we get wrong in the way that we think about them. So one of the ways that people who don't read enough of your books, who are not daily consumers of this product, they get wrong is they think to be a Stoic you need a stiff upper lip, not feel any suffering, that you need to actually bear yourself in a dignified way with pain, but you shouldn't actually feel pain, and you certainly shouldn't show people that you feel pain. That's wrong. This actually
is lowercase versus uppercase Stoicism, you could say.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's right. So are you taking this pain stoically? That just means it's sort of British,
yes.
Stiff upper lip stuff. That's actually not how the Stoics, they feel the same things that we feel, but they actually find the meaning in them, and as such they point their emotions in a productive direction and manage them appropriately. And so the most important thing that we get wrong in the reading of the Stoics is not actually being alive in our own feelings and understanding ourselves, but trying to block out the things that we consider to be weak.
And don't you think one of the things I think people get wrong about the Stoics is this idea that they're apathetic or resigned, that they sort of just defer to the status quo, which to me is belied by the fact of they were all involved in politics. They all created works of art. They all raised kids. They were all engaged in life, which is, I think, a theme in your work, that one of the best ways you can find happiness is by finding purpose, finding something, a project, a thing, a cause to put yourself into.
No, totally. And to dedicate yourself entirely to teaching. I mean, one of the most poignant Stoic moments, as far as I'm concerned, is the last words of Cicero. I mean, who arguably was a Stoic. I mean, he was kind of a mixed bag.
He's a fellow traveler.
Yeah, totally. And he was, being pursued by Roman centurions to be put to death because he had, crossed Mark Antony over the assassination of Julius Caesar. He was like getting canceled, man.
Yes.
I mean, we think it's bad today. Whew. And so he's being chased by these centurions, and they track him down, and they're about to cut his throat. And he says, "There's nothing proper about what you are about to do to me, centurion, but do try to kill me properly."
I think some of those like epic last words, they come from a place of confidence and security, and like that what matters in life. You can only have the sort of balls to sort of defy Nero, as Seneca does at the end, or Cato does at the end. I think of Cato sitting down to read Socrates before taking his own life, rather than submit to Caesar. To me, that's a person who knows what really matters in life, even though he's spending his few last minutes on Earth with that thing.
Oh, it's so important. This is, if there's one thing that we learn about the end of life from the Stoics, it should be that your last word should not be, oh, let me hang on for one more minute.
Yes,
It's like, I will take, that machine, that test, that drug, whatever it happens to be, just give me 10 more minutes, just like gripping with your fingernails at the very end, or pleading for your life. I mean, look, your life's going to end, whether it's today or 30 years from now. Die with dignity and die in such a way that you can inspire other people.
Yeah, Marcus Aurelius, dying of the plague, his friends are crying, and he says, don't cry about me. Think about all the people who have also lost their lives, and then think about your own mortality now in this moment. To me, how can I spend my last few minutes on Earth productively? Not to make a little more money, to write a more thing, but to just actually be there. He's being there for the people who are supposed to be there for him.
No, that's like, it turns out his real last words were, I should have bought more crap.
Yes, right. And it's not, I'm sorry. Well, his last words should have been something about, I really screwed up with Commodus. Please don't make him emperor. But he fell short there.
and careful with my son. Yes.
Give me the equation for happiness.
The equation for happiness is that 50% is genetic, 25% is your circumstances, and 25% is your habit.
So we only control 25% of it
directly.
Yes.
However, here's the interesting thing. So 50%, this comes from identical twin studies. There's a lot of great science on this, that 50% of your baseline happiness is genetic, but it's actually having to do with your habits as well. Why? Because all of our genetics also have switches. You have proclivities and switches.
Sure.
So something like 60% of your tendency to be an alcoholic is genetic, but I have this incredible technology. It's called not drinking.
Right, sure.
Which means that you're not going to be an alcoholic under the circumstances. And the same thing is true.
You can get sober or get help with said
or just
addiction,
not drink if both your parents are alcoholics, which is probably a pretty good strategy. And so this is the same thing with happiness. You have your baseline and understanding yourself, knowing yourself, which is from the Oracle at Delphi.
Yep.
Know yourself. I mean, this is one of the most ancient ideas that's critically important, such that you are not a slave to your proclivities, but rather the master with your switches of yourself. The second part is circumstances. Everybody thinks that's the big swinger. If I ask my students, what'll make you permanently happy? It's like getting that job, graduating from college,
moving to New York City.
Yeah, having the person I love marry me. Sorry. Circumstances do affect 25% of your happiness or unhappiness, but they never last. The thing that really lasts and affects your circumstances to give you better luck, and your switches so you're not mastered by your genetics, is your habits. And your habits come in 4 categories. All the happiest people have 4 daily habits, and everything you do falls into one of these particular categories. Now, there's lots of little things like, go to the gym and eat your vegetables and this kind of stuff. But the big 4 are faith, family, friendship, and work that serves others. And faith means, by the way, not necessarily traditional faith. It means a life
Believing something
philosophy.
bigger than yourself.
Yeah, it's something transcendental, somewhere you can zoom out and get peace and perspective. And that, by the way, it might just be studying the Stoics.
Sure.
Just to pulling that one out of the hat.
Of course, I would agree.
But by the way, and that is not inconsistent with traditional religious faith. I'm a practicing Catholic and a student of the Stoics.
Sure. Yeah.
Second is family life, the ties that bind, that don't break, and you don't choose, and God knows you wouldn't in many cases. But those are the 2 a.m. calls you can count on.
Sure.
The third is the most intimate relationships in your life, which is your friends. And that means for all the strivers that are watching us right now, real friends, not deal friends.
Yes,
And
which
we
you
all
talk
know
about
friends.
in Strength to Strength.
Oh yeah. It's such a big difference. I know so many.
What did your son say? You were on the phone and you're like, oh, that was my friend. And he said, is that a work friend or a real friend?
He said, it's a real friend, Dad, or a deal friend? You have a lot of deal friends. This kid's like 11. I mean, he's been listening to me or reading my research or something. It's very annoying. And the last is work, and work's just got to have 2 characteristics to it. You have to earn your success, and you have to serve other people, especially people with less power and privilege than you. And what an extraordinary joy it is. And I don't care if you're a bus driver or if you're a writer or a college professor or an electrician. If you believe that you're earning your success, your skills meet your passions, and your accomplishments and merit are rewarded, and you serve other people and you know who they are, you'll get joy from your work.
So Zeno, founder of Stoicism, suffers a shipwreck. He washes up in Athens, penniless.
Right.
This is how the story goes. Ends up in a bookstore, and he hears the bookseller reading the work of Socrates. or a work about Socrates. Specifically, this is from Xenophon. He's reading about the choice of Hercules, right? Virtue and vice. And afterwards, he walks up to him and he says, "Where can I find a man like that, like Socrates?" And he points him to a philosopher who's walking by and says, "Like there." And that's where Stoicism comes from, is this sort of philosophical encounter in a bookstore. But where it all comes full circle is Zeno had gone to the oracle as a young man. And the oracle had said, "You will become wise when you begin to have conversations with the dead," which he realized in that bookstore was philosophy. Because philosophy is how we talk to the wisest people who ever lived, who are no longer with us.
So tell me this, what was the role? Zeno lost everything in that shipwreck. It was all of his purple ink,
Yes.
or whatever he was selling, right?
Yeah, purple dye, which dyes the emperor's
which was
cloak,
super expensive stuff,
Yes.
right? It was made from seashells or from something.
Sea snails, by slaves,
exactly.
yes.
But he was ruined. He had to be ruined to become complete. How's that?
Well, so he says, "I made a great fortune when I suffered a shipwreck."
Was it because he suffered the shipwreck that he made the great fortune, or was it subsequent to that and serendipitous?
Well, the great fortune was discovering philosophy.
But he couldn't have done it unless he
Yes,
had
of
lost
course.
his great fortune.
Well, it's like in Fight Club. Once you lose everything, you're free to do anything. I think it's not just like, oh, the serendipity of like, because of this, butterfly flaps its wings, he ends up here. I think it's by losing everything, he's forced to rebuild his life. And at that rock bottom moment, it's what do I build my life around? What matters? What do I care about? He was a merchant. He was dealing in Tyrian purple because that's what his father had done and his father had done before him. So I think it wipes the slate clean. And he's like, well, now I'm at this crossroads. What direction am I going to go?
So for the people who are watching us right now talking about this, and they're suffering because they're bereaved or they're insecure or they're sick or they're afraid, that's a huge opportunity. And they should say something has wiped my slate clean, and like Zeno, I can actually arise anew, but in a much, much better way, right? And only because of this loss.
Yes, and that's the idea of finding the meaning in the suffering. It always allows you to reevaluate, to question, to change, to go in a different direction that had you gotten everything you thought you wanted would not have been possible. I hope you like this video. I hope you subscribe. But what I really want you to subscribe to is our daily Stoic email. 1 bit of Stoic wisdom, totally for free, to the largest community of Stoics ever in existence. You can sign up at dailystoic.com/email. There's no spam. You can unsubscribe at any time. I love sending it. I've sent it every day for the last 6 years, and I hope to see you there at dailystoic.com/email.